"Daddy, please help her." He had fought wars in the desert, lost brothers in arms, and slept under skies filled with fire, but nothing broke him like the sight of his little girl crying in a diner at 2 a.m. The man named Jake Turner sat there in his worn-out military jacket, the patch on his sleeve faded but still proud, his weathered hands wrapped around a half-empty cup of coffee. The rain outside poured without mercy, hammering the glass walls of the roadside diner as if the world itself wanted to wash away the tiredness from his soul. His 7-year-old daughter, Emma, sat quietly beside him, her tiny hand clutching the frayed sleeve of her father's coat. She wasn't used to seeing him this lost, this broken. But tonight, he had no home to go to, no place that would take them, and no job that could keep them afloat. If you believe that kindness, courage, and second chances still exist in this world, then please, like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Tales. Your support helps stories like this one reach hearts that need a little light. The waitress that night noticed him long before he spoke. Her name was Lily Hayes, a woman with tired eyes and a soft voice, who had learned to hide her pain behind polite smiles. She had seen hundreds of faces come and go, but something about Jake's silence pulled her in. Maybe it was the way he looked at his daughter, like every breath he took was only to keep her safe. Maybe it was the way he didn't complain, didn't ask for help, even when the empty wallet in his coat pocket was all the proof that life hadn't been kind to him. When she brought him the check, Jake thanked her quietly and admitted that his card wouldn't go through. He promised he'd come back tomorrow, even though his eyes said he didn't know where he'd be sleeping that night. Without saying a word, Lily smiled softly, tore the bill in half, and said, "It's on the house." Jake's lips trembled, he wanted to protest, but she stopped him. "I've been where you are," she whispered, and walked away before he could thank her. That single act of kindness was small, but to Jake and Emma, it was the difference between despair and hope. Over the next few weeks, Jake found work at a local auto shop. It didn't pay much, but it was honest, and it gave him a reason to stand tall again. Every evening after his shift, he'd walk into that same diner, not because he had to eat, but because he wanted to see Lily. She'd smile at Emma, bring her an extra slice of pie, and laugh at Jake's clumsy attempts to act casual. Slowly, between plates of pancakes and cups of black coffee, two broken souls began to heal each other. But Lily had her own war, one that didn't leave scars on her skin but cut deep inside her heart. Her father, Richard Hayes, was one of the wealthiest men in the city, a cold, controlling billionaire who treated her life like a business asset. Years ago, when she refused to marry the man he chose for her, he disowned her, cutting her off completely. Since then, she had worked 3 jobs just to survive, determined to build her own life on her own terms. But when he found out she was living in a small town, waiting tables at a diner, he came storming back into her life with money and manipulation. He told her she was embarrassing the family name. He demanded she return home, where he could fix her mistakes. And when she refused, his threats turned darker. He promised to destroy the diner that had given her refuge, to crush the people she cared about until she had nowhere left to hide. That's when Jake stepped in. He didn't know the details at first, only that Lily came to work one night with tears in her eyes and trembling hands. When she dropped a plate and tried to pick up the shards before anyone saw, Jake quietly knelt beside her and said, "You don't have to face this alone." Those words, simple, honest, strong, broke through the wall she had built around her heart. She told him everything. The next morning, Richard Hayes arrived at the diner himself. His expensive car gleamed under the sun as he stepped out, his tailored suit radiating power. He walked in like he owned the place, because that's how men like him always walked. His voice was smooth but sharp as a knife when he told Lily that her soldier friend was a bad influence, a charity case who had no future. Jake stood up quietly from his seat, his expression calm but his eyes burning with a quiet fury. He wasn't intimidated by power. He had seen worse men crumble in war zones. Jake walked closer, standing between Lily and her father, his voice steady but filled with steel. "She doesn't need your control. She needs peace." You've got money, sir, but you don't have love. And that's the one thing you can't buy. The entire diner fell silent. Richard's face turned red with anger, and he spat out words like venom, threatening to make Jake regret ever crossing him. But Jake didn't flinch. He simply turned, took Lily's trembling hand in his, and led her outside. Emma followed, holding Lily's other hand as if to remind her, family isn't about blood, it's about love. Days turned into weeks, and despite Richard's threats, Lily and Jake built something beautiful together. They moved into a small house near the outskirts of town, old, creaky, but filled with laughter. Jake taught Emma how to ride her bike on the dirt road outside while Lily cooked dinner, her soft humming echoing through the open windows. For the first time in years, they all felt free. But Richard wasn't done. When persuasion failed, he used power. He sent lawyers, investigators, and even false reports to take custody of Emma, claiming Jake was unfit because of his past trauma and unstable life. The day child services arrived, Jake broke. For a moment, all the strength he had built crumbled. He sat in his living room with his medals in one hand and his daughter's teddy bear in the other, realizing how unfair the world could be to those who had already given everything. Yet, it was Lily who refused to let him fall. She went to her father's mansion herself, stormed through his guarded gates, and faced him one last time. With tears streaming down her face, she told him she was done being afraid, that love wasn't weakness, it was strength. She exposed everything he had done to manipulate her life, recorded every conversation, every threat, and turned them over to the authorities. It was risky, dangerous, and terrifying, but it saved Jake. When the court finally cleared Jake's name, Emma ran into his arms and wouldn't let go. Lily stood beside him, smiling through tears as the judge declared him fit to raise his daughter. The crowd clapped, but for Jake, the real victory was knowing he'd finally found a home, not in a house, but in hearts that loved him without condition. Months later, Jake and Lily reopened the old diner under a new name, Second Chance Cafe. Veterans, single parents, and lost souls came there to eat, and no one ever left hungry, even if they couldn't pay. Every plate served was a story, every customer a reminder that kindness still mattered. And on quiet evenings, when the sun dipped below the horizon and Emma's laughter filled the air, Jake would sit on the porch, look at Lily, and whisper, "Guess we both found what we were fighting for." She'd smile softly, take his hand, and reply, "Not fighting anymore, Jake, just living." If this story touched your heart, if you believe in kindness, love, and second chances, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Tales. It helps us continue sharing stories that remind the world there's still good out there. Speech balloon special request, tell us in the comments, what does kindness mean to you? We'd love to hear your story.